right, we're gonna turn my camera when I just say hi. Not as glamorous as an actual picture, but more real. So it's good to see everybody. I already talked to a few of you on a one-on-one, so it's really great to see the fourth cohort. Congratulations again for making it to the residency. It's a great program. So hopefully you all take good advantage of all the resources that they have to offer. I mean, kudos to Borja and Nicole for sticking with an idea. There are not that many people in crypto that like stick with the same project for more than a few months. So there's probably like that's also has to be definitely recognized. And I'm sure, like, so I don't know all of you, but I'm sure some of you have like already some knowledge like about like you like also might have already minted NFTs and might be familiar with the platforms. But today is kind of meant to be a little bit of a reminder as well about different things. So just bear with me if there are some things that you might think are obvious, and so yeah, hopefully that will be useful. As Boya said, like if you want to ask questions during the class, like absolutely, like this is not a formal lecture by all means, and needs to be useful to you guys. So this is your time as well to ask everything, but we'll also be available afterwards if there's anything else. And you have a lot of different classes. I actually also pinpoint a few classes that I actually wanted to watch myself. So this is great for everybody. And again, like we're all learning. I think this is a great thing with a new space like that. It's is that everybody kind of goes back to learning mode, and that like even people who like look at or deal with NFTs and crypto art every day. There's always more to learn. And I think that's why we're all very excited about that space, and also meeting new people. I was just telling Jules a few hours ago that like it's even if it's a new like crypto art ecosystem, it's easy to always talk about the same artists, the same projects, like the same thing, and like become kind of a closed ecosystem. So so I think this is like very exciting that you guys are joining the space, or that we get to meet. I think this is also a big value of the residency. But I'm preaching the choir, so that's gonna be all for now. But yeah, shall we start, Borja, with the presentation? You're good?
I say yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Right. So let me give myself a bit more Ben stream with no video, and then all right, let me try slideshow, but sometimes it says just so just tell me like if some things disappear, like, or if you see a white screen, or something that should not happen. But yeah, so I did not actually introduce myself during all my talking. As you can hear, I'm from France. I've been in New York for 18 years, and now in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, for 1 year. Don't ask; it's a long story. And so I come from more of the art market, but nothing glamorous. Just really what people now call art and tech, and really worked for platforms like Artnet, Christie's as well. But I actually came into Christie's by a startup, SaaS startup for collection management systems that they acquired in 2014. So again, nothing like like I would like to say, it's always like the dirty works that we're doing in the back, but useful, and since 2018 I've been advising NFT platforms, mostly like art related platforms who needed help to know how to address artists like and traditional art market, so helped be that bridge. And then since last year, I mean now like 2021, been working with a lot of collectors and artists as well directly, less like projects and platforms, to be honest, because this is not what the decentralized Web3 ecosystem should be about. It should really be about direct peer-to-peer connections between creators and collectors. So I've been doing that under LAL ART, which LAL is literally my kid's initial, so nothing fancy here. Okay, legal disclaimer, have to show it, but yeah, this is me. I'm not, cool enough to have pseudonyms, so you can literally find me anywhere under my name, and this is like the company that we've been operating under. All right, so today the topic is how does crypto art market work? And it's kind of like, okay, it could be making a very boring market definition, like demand and supply and price equilibrium presentation. This is not the case, but it's always good to remember that this is still a market and there's still supply, which is literally like the artworks that you guys are producing, and the demand being like the collectors, and then the market price is like the price that you actually sell an artwork, right? Like, I mean, there's many ways to support artists, but at the end of the day, we all like to have like sales in the market. So this is kind of just a reminder of I'm going to use a lot of like very boring like jargon, but sometimes it's like it's frowned upon to use like marketing jargon, but for the sake of clarity and usefulness, I would say sometimes it's good to go back to basics. So don't shoot the messenger if I use marketing jargon. Like, I absolutely respect your work and trying to give you tools. And so what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit, like put back in perspective a little bit, like take a higher view of what like the crypto art market is within NFTs and within like Web3, and then talk to you a bit about the different tools and partners that might be useful to you. And I know the presentation will be available on YouTube for everybody, but I'll also make sure to send the slides in Discord to your cohort, so you can actually click on the links and use that as a like directory of tools and resources later on. So don't worry if you don't write everything down. Like, don't worry. And then like try to to conclude, like we'll look a little bit at like what's next, and we can discuss like absolutely, if you have questions along the way, please put them in the chat or just unmute yourself. I can speak for a very long time if you don't stop me, so just know that about myself. All right, so Web3 ecosystem for art. So we've all heard about like all of the different use cases for NFTs, gaming, metaverses, utilities, collectibles, which is definitely like a big part of the market. So this data here is to take with a grain of salt. It's like 2021 data, mostly on Ethereum. So of course, if you look at Tezos, which is much more creative driven, that might be absolutely not the case. But still, in terms of volume, like this is quite a good reminder to have a look at that. And I think this really, for me, helps me understand where people come from when they say like, oh, I hate NFTs. Well, of course, like 50% and like probably like 90% of the big like news headlines have been around collectibles. So no wonder that art lovers like don't love it, because this is not for them. And I think, I mean, something I've been using and that I I like saying is that now, like when people say I hate or I love NFTs, really doesn't mean much, and it's as if people would tell you like I hate books or I hate websites. Like literally, that's the envelope. And art, if you look at here, this is still quite small use case of everything. So this is like something I've been using talking to people who are unfamiliar with NFTs and to kind of make them realize what we're talking about here, and which is not what they might have seen in the press. So that's just a good something to, for you to use as well. So I'm sure you've already you came to the residency, so this is something that obviously you've been interested in, but I think something that is important to remember is why do NFT matters for art, and specifically digital art. I mean, of course, we can talk about like blockchain solutions for traditional works of art and objects like that are not digital, but I think this is very important to remember why it matters for digital art specifically, where for the first time you could really have ownership, scarcity, provenance record, and the promise or the chance to have royalties on secondary sales. I would take that last one with a grain of salt. I'm sure you've seen a lot of debates about zero royalties, enforceable royalties. It's still a promise, I would say, of the space, but de facto, in real life, this is something that is still quite hard to kind of have enforced for every secondary sales, and we could spend like an hour and a half on royalties. Happy to talk a bit more about that afterwards. But something that you have to know is that very early on, when I first joined the space in 2017, royalties was already the main keyword that was used as a promise for artists to join the NFT bandwagon, and when there was actually not even a primary market established. So this is something quite revolutionary, but harder to implement than I think most expected. So also that for you to have a little bit of a framework in mind, I think what we see what I call the money flow, and you probably have seen that graph on Twitter. That's just reproduced here for because I could not find it on Twitter again, so I had to recreate it here. But this is something that we've seen a lot of collectors come into NFTs, or more actors, not collectors yet, but people coming into the NFT space via collectibles and profile picture PFP projects, because it was kind of a fast purchase decision, kind of an easy to understand. It's very flat and very straightforward. But then what was interesting is that slowly but surely people collecting PFPs started looking more into generative art, and with more understanding of algorithms, a bit more tech savvy crowd interested in algorithm and generative art, with an aesthetic that if you look at most of the generative art right now, it's still very computer output driven, I would say. There's few organic visuals, and it's if you look at websites like FX Hash or Art Blocks, they're definitely an aesthetic linked to popular generative art, but that was kind of the next step into from a collectible collection to getting to become an art collector. And then from there, via generative art, discovering new artists, new projects, like new artist names attached to this series, then seen like people collect and get into like more of the one-on-one or like the very limited edition series of crypto art. And interestingly, like these are like actually now like we're like looking at like people before contemporary art, maybe like I should add like maybe other types of digital art, but like they're venturing into collecting other types of art that is not actually necessarily backed by an NFT. And last year, actually, at Art Basel Miami 2021, what was really interesting to see was visits of the museums in Miami and the contemporary art fairs led by organizations like Friends with Benefits DAO and other crypto native like collectors like getting interested into that market. So quite, there's a lot that we could debate on that slide that is not like like a case like that is not the way for everybody, but this is like something that kind of a trend and way that we've seen around. All right, so any questions so far? No, all good. Okay, I don't see you, but if I don't hear you, then I assume there's no question. Okay, so I think like one thing that is always interesting to me is that like most of the time the first question people ask is about the platform that they should mint on, and oftentimes forgetting that before the platform you have like higher like choice to make, which is like the blockchain that you should mint on. And of course, like volume wise, like we're still like looking at Ethereum being like the main blockchain in terms of like volume of sales, volume of collectors, and number of artists. Knowing that like I can talk about Bitcoin as well if you want to hear a bit more about that, but or I can send you more information as well. I don't know why it's not on that slide, but it should be as well because you can also do NFTs on Bitcoin. But some things that Ethereum like last summer, like summer 2021, or a little bit before summer 2021. I'm sure you remember like headlines like, oh, NFT artists are burning the planet, and Ethereum and Bitcoin are like very bad for the environment, which is a true statement, much truer than like NFT artists are burning the planet. And so at that point, this was when Tezos actually came into the picture, because and they position themselves as creative friendly and creative like creators centric blockchain that was respective of the environment and a solution for artists. I'm not like I'm kind of not like I'm kind of blockchain agnostic. I think this is like a great option for creatives, but I do want you to know that like there are other options than Tezos, right? Or Ethereum. And Ethereum, like I'm sure you've heard about the project called the Merge, which is Ethereum like trying to switch from a proof of work to a proof of stake functioning, which would make them equally environmentally friendly as Tezos or native proof of stake blockchains. And of course, the solution is not like to just say, oh, I'll just wait for Ethereum to like, become like proof of stake and like, so this is why like a lot of artists went onto Tezos. Also Tezos having and the Tezos Foundation having a big emphasis on supporting art events. Like you've seen them at like Art Basel, Miami, Art Basel, Basel, and probably many more art events as well. But like my point being that like you should not feel that you're tied to one blockchain. You can actually experiment. I mean, the other ones like that are like smaller Ethereum layer 2 blockchains like Polygon, Palm, Flow, Polkadot haven't really seen any uptake in terms of like artistic projects. Flow, for example, is much more centered on collectible. Palm a little bit, like actually with like Damien Hirst project and being supported now by like a lot of marketplaces. But you need to know your options, right? So this is something that is important to research and feel comfortable with, but deciding in all due course. And just one last thing on the Ethereum merge. So now it's actually scheduled for September 15th. But it's the first time in history that a blockchain that was proof of work is becoming and switching to proof of stake. So a lot of things can go wrong. There's a lot of impact for NFTs as well. I'm actually writing something about it right now because there's literally nothing out there that's really summarizing the consequences of that merge and that change for NFTs. We should be fine. We're all gonna make it, but it's still good to have that documented as well. And then the first step really being like the blockchain, and then looking at like marketplaces. And I am not my goal here is not to list all of the marketplaces that are available to you. I tried actually, and then like got crazy during the 2021 trying to keep track of all the new marketplaces that were popping up every day, and now they are shutting down, right? And I'm sure Jason Bailey like mentioned like the risk of like marketplaces to shut down. So I'm not going to focus on that, but the idea here is for you to have like kind of buckets in mind when you look at a marketplace, and like advantages, like like disadvantages, and so on and so forth. So here it's like 3 buckets. Or rectangles, if you want, and the first one is like really like the permissionless platforms. So you have OpenSea, Rarible, Zora, Mintable, and many other probably as well. But permissionless meaning that you, me, my daughter, like anybody can tomorrow mint an NFT on this platform. There is no waitlist or selection process. So that's kind of the first big bucket. And then you have the invitation only platforms. And oftentimes people call them curated. And I'm really fighting against that, denomination, because most people who call these platforms curated are actually using the term curation in a very narrow way, and not so much of an like what you would call like a curated exhibition in the art market, right? Like curation at that point is a little bit like selection, like it's this kind of synonym for selection, and this can get a little muggy with like platforms like Super Rare that like really position themselves as like the platform for art, for crypto art, and really when an artist get accepted on Super Rare, you see oftentimes that they change their like Twitter profile to Super Rare artist, for example. That's fine, right? Like this is kind of like giving you like a status and telling people, okay, I've been accepted on Super Rare for my art. However, you should not expect much more from these platforms. Meaning, what I mean is that they are still for-profit platforms that will accept artists that will make them revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, a platform, a marketplace only survives if it makes sales and commissions on sale. I mean, this is a very simple business model. And a lot of artists had expected being accepted on Super Rare to kind of sell their work like right away, or have access to Super Rare marketing team, and like have like, you know, editorial being done, or like more context given about their work. The sad reality, I mean, the harsh reality is that, well, Super Rare is still just one platform with one homepage, one blog, like a very, very, very few like curators or people in the curation team. And so they can highlight only a very, very small number of artists. And this is something that, you know, it's still everything, like all the effort, the marketing effort and everything still relies like and falls on the artist's shoulder. And you can see that like with even their gallery in Soho in New York, like where a lot of times artists who exhibit in the physical gallery actually don't sell the works, right? Like, I mean, it's not an automatic thing. Like, this is much more complicated than that. And oftentimes when it sells, it's really on the artist to really handle the whole effort. And we'll get to that. But that's kind of like this like invitation only bucket. And then again, I'm not calling that like this like third bucket, like it's not yet curated per se, but you have it's a mix. I mean, there's some like platforms that really developed like specialization, like, you know, like of course Art Blocks is for generative art, like Quantum is mostly for photography NFT. Henny, to be honest, I think the only like specialization is to work with famous artists like Damien Hirst and JR. Don't see any other like quite qualification, like, you know, qualification. And then when it gets to like a bit more curated, you have like a lot of galleries, traditional galleries that actually like founded their own like NFT marketplaces. So Institute is the marketplace backed by Unit London, Misa. It was Konish who is behind Misa. I could be mistaken. I'm blanking on this one, but always good to see, you know, kind of to look at the history and like, or like what platform, because these are like homes that you will pick for your work. So it has to make sense for you and your art. And then you have similarly on Tezos. So like it's interesting how like here we went back and forth like with like having here, like, because Tezos is so focused on creative, that like they actually helped a lot of like curated marketplaces or curated platforms to actually build on Tezos. So we've seen like more and more like what, you know, like I would call curated, and let me define like curated for you, for my use in this particular case. This is really where you have like someone, I would say a curator, like really organizing small sales or small exhibits of works that have a link between each other, that have a sort of a glue and a story behind, like being able then to give more context about the works, like giving, like highlighting why the works make sense. Like for me, this is what I call like curated. Again, agree to disagree. Like if you know, like there's so many definitions of curation. We actually had a whole like 6 months of discussions like last year with Nicole that she organized on what does curation means to you. So this is like a very broad subject. But similarly, like they're like open permissionless marketplaces, and you can see that Rarible here is actually supporting both Tezos and Ethereum, and then like specialized platforms again as well, with like generative art, like photography, and so on and so forth. So to just recap, like, the main, no, before that, before recapping, I think one thing that like that you have to, like, I put that here, like, to kind of like help you, like, how to decide, right? Like, I mean, what makes sense? Like, it's like, I don't know what, where, or like what I should use for my NFTs. Like, it's like there's a few questions you need to ask yourself, like, to choose your own adventure. If you remember the books, where you picked your own destiny. But a few questions, like being like, what is environmental impact? What sale price do I expect? Like, what type of series do I want to put out there? Do I care about like custom terms or like specific smart contract? Like, I think you have a class, or you've had a class already specifically on smart contracts. So really understanding like the ins and outs of the terms that go behind your NFT, and then like timing or type of sale. But at the end of the day, you don't have to be chained to one platform or even one blockchain. Like, I think this is kind of where like there's a big no-no still, that like you can't like mint the same work, and I have to say it out loud, I know you know that, but you can't mint the same work on non-origin and OpenSea. Like, this would really be like duplication and like a very big no-no in the art market or any or the creative market. But you can use different, like, or test different audiences, test different formats. Like, a lot of artists would do like unique works on OpenSea, for example, but then they do a generative art series on FX Hash or Art Blocks, like, etc., etc. The only thing is that you have to be clear to your audience of like why and where you're doing something. I think this is kind of where you should not have any red flags or people being like, wait a second, I've seen that somewhere else. Like, what is it trying to do? But asking yourself these questions is like important, but you can also decide at the series or at the project level, like, this is not a decision for your entire career. And it's good, to like test and like, this is like a test and iterate type of environment anyway. And it changes so fast that like this is important. I think one last thing that I would say is that like you might see like, again, as I said, like, this is absolutely not complete, and there are like new platforms coming out every day. Like, be wary about like new platforms, because then you put your art on these platforms, and for the like new platforms, like, most often they will reach out to artists because they need your content, right? Like, I mean, art marketplaces are nothing without art, so they need you more than you need them. And be careful of like ask questions about the terms, about like look at like who's behind the platform, if it's backed by a bigger company, things like that, like, will reassure you that tomorrow they will be still around, and that if they disappear, what happens to the NFT, like questions like that like right now might seem like stupid questions, but that like will not, like, when the platform actually closes down. So better ask the questions early. Smart contracts, again, like, I think I'm gonna skip that slide because I think you had that class already, but it's very important to understand the terms, and like, part of the residency is very much so focused on allowing you to understand the difference, the different options that you have, like, from a like more general, like, and basic, like platform smart contract that is also cheaper to use, like, up to like a very custom smart contract, like, with specific terms, like, that you want to use, that might be more expensive or more complicated to set up, but that like give you more control over your terms. All right, so just to recap a few like big ideas. I speak a lot and I speak fast, and sorry for the French accents. But invitation only does not mean curated. That's like, I mean, period. Marketplace can't do much for you. Like they can do a few things, they can accept you, but afterwards the effort is still mostly on the artist. Even on super rare, or platforms, or like claiming that differently. All right. Any question at this point? Any question about a particular platform or? No? Okay. Boya, you let me know if there's something in the chat. I'm full screen right now, so
Will
I
do.
can't. I can see. Okay, cool. Thanks.
So far, no questions.
Okay, cool. And so, yes.
Yeah. Can I make a?
Oh, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit faintly.
I mean, let's try. If not, I can type it, I guess.
Yeah, it's good. You're good.
Yeah. So, what do you think is like actually? I mean, I won't say the best, but like from all the platforms, like, what do you think it's like the? I won't say the best curation, but like, which one's your favorite? Kind of.
So I'm gonna be very controversive at saying that, like, I mean, not so controversive, but it's like, for me, you don't really need to wait. Like, one thing that like I would never do is to tell someone like, oh, do not do anything until you get accepted to like, like super rare or non-origin. I think this is something that like, first you need to actually show them that you've done things, right? Otherwise you're going to spend a lot of time writing your application to these platforms, and with like very like low chances of getting in. And what a lot of artists, and even now like very established artists like Kevin Abosch do, they use OpenSea because it's it's open. It's you can upload your own like smart contract there, and it has like the biggest volume on there. So that's on Ethereum, but you can translate that to like Object or Versum or like a Tezos equivalent of a permissionless platform. So like I think this is like for me it's a little bit of a kind of biased for these like open platforms where a lot of artists have said like, oh, I don't want to be like next to like a gaming element, a gaming project, or like some silly collectibles, or but realistically, like nobody discovers any artist like by scrolling down or searching things on OpenSea. I mean, I don't know if you've ever used the search bar just to say, I want to see artworks by I don't know, Mexican artists, or like artworks by generative artists. Like this is not how you get discovered. So really what the platform provides you is a place to mint and have like transactions happen. And then if you look at like, for example, if I go back to my Kevin Abosch example, he uses his own artist website to present the project, explain the concepts, like, and then from his website just links to the works that they like the project page on OpenSea, or to the actual NFT directly on OpenSea for transaction purposes. So I think this is like very healthy. I mean, there's like, it obviously depends on the artist, but I think this is kind of an interesting use case. If you look at like Harm van den Dorpel, he's been using alongside a lot of other artists, he's been using same thing, his website for context and marketing purposes, and Zora for transaction purposes. So Zora actually provides a lot of tools, a lot of options for artists to to sell their work. So that's kind of my my preferred option. And then, of course, apply like by all means, like after a few NFTs or after a few like projects, like apply to the invitation only, like or more like specialized or platforms. I mean, this is kind of the, but I would see that as a cherry on the cake, not the cake. You know, like so I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Yeah. And my question was actually going more to the fact that, I mean, I've been disappointed by platforms, so I've been moving my work from one to the other, and now I'm like only focusing on super rare. But today, like yesterday, I'm talking to a friend, and we're like, so what if this platform also disappoints us eventually? Because I get the sense that it can happen. Like you can't fully trust people and platforms and things, right? So we were like, okay, maybe we need to look for more sovereignty and like alternative for minting our own smart contracts and not really rely on platforms. Less and less. I mean, platforms are good for what they are, but I mean, for the long term.
Yeah, they help definitely like kind of like glue the ecosystem together, because this is like, like people understand like platforms, but it's a very Web2 concept to have platforms. I mean, technically, with the idea of decentralizing all the tools, you should not need the platforms, right? Like at the end of the day, like this is like with you and your smart contract and like the standards and kind of like marketing it to people. But it's like we're getting there, but it's like it's still quite an important element, like even to reassure people who are buying and so on and so forth. But you're right, like I mean, super rare, if you look at it, is quite a centralized like platform. It's I mean, now they're allowing like manifold smart contracts, but before it was all under the super rare contract. So yeah, I mean, not really in control of your terms, like, and the platform disappears, well, like good luck, pretty much. And it's kind of a it should be like platforms should be kind of a like a intermediary that is like okay to use for a while until there are like better ways for artists to like really own like their entire like I would say customer journey for their artists, for their collectors. But the problem is that like right now, like the platforms get a lot of fundings because VCs look at these platforms and they understand that business model, right? Like VC, like if you look at Henderson Horowitz and eBay acquiring, or like Henderson Horowitz and investing in OpenSea, eBay acquiring like Known Origin, these fit in boxes that traditional investors understand because they're Web2 centralized models. And unfortunately for us, it's kind of like emphasizing the platforms too much. That's not the goal of like decentralizing like all of the tools.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you feel about manifold?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I did not hear.
Hi, it's Nathaniel. I think we met in New York.
Yes.
Nice to hear your voice. I'm curious how you feel about projects like Manifold, which allow for like smart contract deployment without necessarily coding it yourself, but platform independent.
Okay, so I am, and it's a great tool. I think you have Manifold. I think there's like Nifty Kit as well, is providing like similar services. One thing that I'm like a little scared about with Manifold, and this is something that I talked about last week with a developer. Like if you look at Manifold, this is all great, right? Like it's free. Any artist can use it. Like they don't actually like charge you any fee, nothing, right? Like it's like a free service for creatives. I mean, it's like sounds a little too good to be true, right? Like I mean, nothing is really free forever. And if you look at like the bottom of the page of Manifold, you actually see that like they're backed by Andreessen Horowitz. And in terms of smart contract, what that developer, it's Tagashi, if you look at him on Twitter, and I'm trying to get more information from him too, which I can relate to you later on. But what he said is that like the problem with manifold smart contracts is that like if they get acquired or they change their business model in a little bit like to actually make money at one point, because you know we're in capitalist countries, right? They could have a backdoor to retroactively update all contracts that are made with manifold. Which obviously were like, you know, like this is some things that like I'm telling you that with a grain of salt because I haven't checked like technically like what that means, right? Like and what that like backdoor is. Like so but this is kind of where like always looking at like the terms and the, you know, kind of who is behind the project is also like is extremely important. But at this point, manifold is still like the best way to control your smart contract. I mean, if it's not like just having a Solidity developer like build it for you, right? Like, I mean, this is like the S2 I would say, like solution to do that. So I'll come back to you on that because this is something I really want to check myself as well.
Nifty Kit wouldn't have that backdoor, but it's a pay service.
I don't know. I don't know Nifty Kit. Like this is I think it's niftykit.com. I haven't inquired. Like this is like that was part of the same discussion where like this came up as well. I think it's free as well. So there's probably you know, like I don't know, something to research as well. I would say to stay courteous. So I'll send you I'll follow up on that because this is you know, something important I think to know. I mean, and it's if you look at like many smart contracts might actually have this like kind of loophole type of thing. If you look at Yuga Labs decided, I think it was a few weeks ago, that they would add royalties on secondary market for MiBits. And that kind of like created an outrage like in MiBits holders. MiBits being like the second, like another project that they acquired from Larva Labs with alongside CryptoPunks. So this is something that, yeah, like suddenly, like, you know, like they decided that like they would charge like 2.5% like royalties to themselves on secondary sales of MiBits, and then you can't really do anything. Like they own it, so they decide that, and technically they were able to do it, which apparently CryptoPunk, you know, like the CryptoPunk mafia was saying that like the way the CryptoPunk contract is written is actually doesn't allow for that to happen. So there's definitely like, you know, there's not one smart contract, like, right? Like you have like many shades of smart contracts. All right. So anything else? So in this part, I wanted to focus a little bit more of like on partners and toolkits that can be useful to you. And I said partners and tools because what I've seen a lot is that the blockchain actually was giving or allowing artists to do a lot themselves, right? Like so there were like the possibility of like minting the works directly, getting in front of collectors, but then which like the side effect was pretty much that now everything falls on you guys to do, like being your chief technology officer, as we've just seen with smart contract, being your chief marketing officer, your chief like social or like social media manager, etc., etc. And it's exhausting, right? Like and if you look at like the successful like early, at least like crypto artists, they're the one who excel at like social media and communication. I mean, Beeple did not come to crypto art with 0 followers. He had millions of followers from his previous like life, same as Pac and Xcopy, etc. But these are people who also enjoy that, right? Like they're the loud ones and like the ones who like to be boosted, like have boosted egos with tweeters, etc., etc. It's not the case for everybody, right? Like, I mean, a lot of artists, and I'm sure like some of you like feel that pain, is that like you want to focus on creating your art and then get help like to write about it, to talk about it, and to market it, right? Like, I mean, these are all very different jobs. And so, look at this as like a toolkit and like kind of like different ideas of like partners to like seek after to make your life easier. I would say, on top of like just selecting a blockchain and a platform. Like after that, like come a lot of work. So obviously, first marketing tool, like and where all the like a lot of the discovery, the discussions, and the sales happen is definitely crypto Twitter. And then you're like, okay, but like if you were an artist before crypto, like you're like, well, I did everything on Instagram. Like fuck it. Like now I spent 10 years like getting off Twitter and I'm going back on it. And I was the same. Like it's not like something that I really enjoyed at first. But as everything, being organized and kind of like knowing what you're going to use each platform for, scheduling like a reasonable amount of posts, not necessarily like here, like scheduling ahead, like with like marketing tools, like none doesn't necessarily work for like a space that is so fast paced. But just scheduling in your brain, like okay, like like on Monday I'm gonna post a behind the scene picture of my work, and on Tuesday I'm gonna post like an article that I enjoyed, or I'm gonna post on something about an artist I respect in the space. And I'm saying that, and you're like, oh well, but that's not enough. Like I should really post like constantly on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, if you have time and energy to do that, by all means, like be there all the time. But sure, like all have like busy schedule, and the key to like anything you do on these platforms is consistency and regularity and endurance, right? So if like for one day you post like 20 things and then like you're not there for like 3 days or 1 week because you're exhausted, right? And you're just like, I can't even look at Twitter anymore. That's not going to work. So being realistic and like scheduling like kind of, I mean, I use at first I use an Excel spreadsheet. Like I use an Excel spreadsheet and I said, okay, on Monday I'm going to do this, on Tuesday I'm going to do that, etc., etc., and then sticking to it, right? And then starting from like something realistic that you can handle on a like short to medium term basis, then expand from there, and then you'll find yourself like probably engaging on discussions. I mean, this is the main difference like between Twitter and Instagram, where like Instagram is very like one way, right? Like you're just posting thing and hoping that people like it. Comments not really important. Twitter, two-way conversations, a very good way actually to engage with other artists. I'll have a list like later on of like curators, like critics, like platforms, like to really like discuss with. And it's an early enough space that when you publish a new work or you're thinking about a new series, I really encourage you to ask for feedback to other fellow artists. And most of them have their like direct message open on Twitter. Even like the so-called brackets like famous ones. If you ask genuinely like a question about an upcoming series that you have, or just a question about like smart contract, like anything really, like they'll be happy to answer. what's not going to work is that if you just do not say anything and then post a link to like buy your art on Twitter. I can assure you 100% this is not going to work. And for a very simple reason, right? And that's when I go back to my marketing jargon, where it's like you have to build like the story, the awareness, and like first the awareness, and then like the story leading to that project. And again, some people are very good with behind the scenes and like engaging posts, and some it's not like, you know, like it's not like a second nature. But if you're not comfortable with like, you know, sharing with the entire world, like engage with a few people. And when we talk about community, that's a big term, right? Like, I mean, and you know, like crypto did not invent community, right? And community don't have to be like tens of thousands of people following you. Community starts with your mom, your husband, your kid, like a friend, like one artist that you know in the crypto space, and engaging them, asking questions, asking for feedback. And then, you know, if you look at it from like more of a psychological like way, if you want, like this is like where you build early adopters, people who care early about what you're actually preparing, and people who are going to spend time understanding the context of your work. And then when you actually release the work, well, hey, you will already have all these people who are like sort of familiar with it, who have heard of it, like who kind of developed a curiosity about it, like, and it will be a much easier sell than out of the blue. Here it is, and here is a 7-page like, you know, like description of like why it matters. Nobody's gonna read that. Sorry, but true. Yeah. I don't know if it makes sense, or I'm just scaring all of you, like, and you're like, okay. That's hard to not see your faces because it's kind of thinking to myself. But anyway, so any question on crypto Twitter? And I think then it's like Instagram, like use it as a little bit like less often, you know, like, or just decide that like Instagram you're going to use just for your art. Don't spend like time duplicating everything from Twitter to Instagram and other platforms that I'm probably too old to use, like TikTok and or, you know, Snapchat. Like, I think this is very important to be realistic with what you can sustain long term, and have a schedule, and really be strategic about it. Like, being on Twitter for Twitter is not a good use of your time. And one more thing is that like creating content specifically for Twitter is sort of a waste of time, because you know, like, we're all dependent still on this like Web 2 like Twitter algorithm that like will show your tweet whenever they think it's like, you know, like good to show, and there are not that many people who are going to see it before it disappears in like the waves of other tweets published. And so this is something that I always like say or advise, is that like if you spend time creating content, have it on your website, have an artist website. And by artist website, I do not mean Linktree. And for those whom I've talked with already, you know, I'm sort of an anti-Linktree person, because Linktree is literally a list of links that don't tell your story, right? It just says like, oh, I have works on Non-Origin, I have works on Super Rare, and I have works on OpenSea. Great, you know, like, you're highlighting the different platforms. You're not actually telling us why we should care. What is the context behind your work? Like, what is the series about? I don't know what you're publishing on Non-Origin. I have to like go around. And for me, like, when I see a Linktree, like, for me, this is kind of like basic, like, oh, this is an artist who's just starting, and it hasn't had time yet to think about his or their like story like as an artist. So spend some time on your website. I know it's tough. It's always a work in progress. It doesn't have to be revolutionary, but this is something that like then you can link, to if you write something about the series on your website, you can link to it like on Telegram, on Twitter, on Instagram is a little trickier to link, but you can have a place where the content will live, can be discovered, and will be discovered by people on their own time. Right, like if you think like, oh, I published that like once a month ago on Twitter, so I'm done. Well, it's like nobody saw it, so you have to publish it way more than that. What I was telling you is what's important as well is really kind of engaging with crypto art communities, and this is very like not like comprehensive, but good start. Like there are a lot of like crypto art DAOs as well that I should absolutely add here. I would add them before I send it to you. It's always when you write the slide that you're like blanking and you're like, oh wait, and I thought about 50 more. But anyway, and what I don't have here is a slide that should be that first slide. Engage with fellow crypto artists, because we talk a lot about like discovery tools and like curated exhibitions and like where people tell you what you should look at. Like really the best discovery tool for me is following artists who will share works of other artists that they know. Like I can't tell you how many like new artists I've discovered by following artists, like simply artists. If you don't follow anybody that are on this slide or anybody, just follow people from your cohort, and they will be your discovery tools to like engage and discover new artists. And don't be afraid to like ask where they're located. We're still like human beings in a human body sitting somewhere, right? So it's like meeting someone in person, like where you are, or at like conferences and things, like really develop like like better bonds like than any online food. But that's an old person speaking, like, so don't take it from me if that doesn't work for you. So then after artists, crypto art communities, definitely a good way, because there are only artists hanging out in this like in these communities, and like museums or like organizations like working with artists, definitely a plus. When I say the many platforms, yes, of course, follow non-origin, but just know that they're also going to be biased, right? It's not like for like beauty of heart or like love of the art that they will feature artists. It's also for making sales happen. That's a long list of people, and it's only the top of the iceberg. But I think this is kind of where we're getting to a point now that, like, going back to my slide where art was like only 16%, we're still at a point where like the space is maturing, and you can now really focus on following people and attending events that like tie to art within the NFT ecosystem. And for those who attended like NFT NYC for the first time in June, like for that was the third NFT NYC. Honestly, the first two ones, I felt I had to attend all the collectibles and the gaming like events because there was nothing else, right? So you had to attend it, and I was like, this is not what like I do not not care, but it's like I do not feel that like I belong. And for the first time now, you actually have publications like Outland, Right Click Save, even Art News, and like the more like traditional art publications publish like stories about art. So you can always like look at the journalists who write about it, the curators. I mean, there's like many people, and this is my people that I follow, and like I like I do not want that to be like the list of like people to follow, but make your list of people to or follow people that like you trust and that you can engage with in conversations. That's absolutely important. Press strategy. So this is something that I had there for like kind of another presentation, but I thought would be useful. Like these next two slides are more of like marketing tools, like when you have something you want to release. So this is something that I was just telling you about. Like this is something that you see a lot of independent writers write about, like crypto art projects. You can also research journalists who've been writing about NFTs or crypto art in art news, in other like more traditional publications, and most of them are reachable, right? And then you have like outlets that like are either like very specifically like focused on crypto art, like Outland and Right Click Save, or a bit more on like all NFT use cases. Here I put it like it's like an NFT media list that you have. That if you click on the slides in Discord, you can have access to. Like this is kind of like a longer list of outlets like that. Like if that's a route that you want to pursue. I think this is like kind of a small, like and small enough and like recent enough ecosystem that like large PR firms and agents like don't really work so well because one-on-one outreach still works. It's not like as crowded of a space yet that like this is an impossible route to use anymore. So I think you should really take advantage of that. So I've always worked in marketing, even at like Artnet and even before being in the art market. And I've never had a budget, right? Like, I mean, I dream of, what people tell me that before you had millions of dollars at like large companies. I mean, even at Christie's, like there was really no marketing budget, because $1 that you spend in marketing is $1 spent. It's not an investment, it's an expense. So we had done this like list of marketing tools, very diverse. It's everything from Web2 to Web3 to like writing to scheduling posts on social media. But like if that can use or spark ideas, great. Like, so use it as you want. Same thing. It has like a list here. It's a Notion space. Nothing mind blowing, but hopefully helpful. And then we've been talking a lot about like the marketplaces and like specialized, curated, and so it wouldn't be fair if we don't talk about galleries. And it's very interesting if you look at like what has been happening in the crypto art space in the past year or so. A lot of artists have actually trusted traditional auction houses like Sotheby's and Christie's first before trusting commercial art galleries. And of course, if you look at like the ethos of the blockchain, it was like to kill the intermediary, like bring back the financial power to the artist, give it back to the artist, and cut the fees that like the galleries were taking 50%. Like this is not a sustainable business model. It's never has been. But we kind of forgot something in that like history, is that galleries were there for something, right? Like, I mean, they were here to help artists set their market, help them with marketing, PR, everything that we talked about, social media, for that fee. I am not justifying like 50% as like not like an okay like level, but there was still a usefulness to the galleries and the service that they were like bringing to the artists. So it's very interesting that like auction houses got in first. And if you think about it, auction houses, their business model is on secondary sales. So secondary sales means that like this is like resell. So you don't normally see artists selling their work directly via an auction house. Most of the time, what happens is that like the artist sells the work to a collector first via a gallery, and then like the collector who purchased the work via the gallery like resell the work via an auction house to another collector, etc., 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 right? And like auction houses have always tried to compete with galleries on like primary sales, so that's why you see a lot of private sales happening within auction houses. But suddenly with the crypto art sales, it suddenly became normal that an artist would sell their work directly through an auction house, which also like has a lot of fees. Like, let's face it, it's not as highly advertised, but it's there's still quite a considerable fee involved with selling via an auction house. The problem being that auction houses like are not like they're not like it's not their business model to explain why an artwork is significant or make a new artist being discovered. Like they tend to sell things that are already known and kind of facilitate this transaction, but not highlight new artists and do all the marketing around it. And so I want you to think about that a little bit. Like, and you've seen like recent auctions of crypto art not being that successful. And now like galleries are actually more traditional art galleries are they have to review their business model, like review their fees, but they are looking to represent more crypto native artists, and they are interested in, of course, taking a piece of the cake, right? Like because they've been a little bit left out, but for some artists, again, it doesn't work for every artist. It is something that they're like looking for, like having this help, like marketing their work. And the last example was Sarah Mayonas from the project Beachcoin that started being represented in June by Marianne Busky Gallery in New York, and one Chelsea-based gallery. So here I listed like I have a whole list of like galleries here that are involved with NFTs. Obviously, it's always outdated because there are more every day. But there are a lot of like digital art galleries like that were selling like digital art way before NFTs, like Bitform, like Gazelle, like where are they? Postmasters. I don't know why they're not here. Like etc. etc. So they're a lot of galleries like also just to follow to see like what artists they curate, what shows they do, but also like keep that as an option. All right, concluding thoughts, because I think we're getting a sorry, I'm like speak and but any questions about tools and partners?
If I may, I have a question regarding the beginning and the landscape you gave along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you started with the slide, like a microeconomic slide with like price elasticity of demand, and I was curious to know your thoughts about cross-chain minting and pricing strategy for artists.
Yes, I mean, so I actually did not put like pricing strategies because I think you have an entire like class on that, but I'm happy to send more thoughts. Like I think this is kind of where like okay, tapping aside like the cross-chain minting, like I think this is where there's no magic formula, right? Like to establish like a market price and like like this like formula like would be great to have. But I think this is like where there's like it's very new market still, where it's a lot done by like finding this price by testing and iterating and being flexible, right? So there's of course like a formula with scarcity and the price of the works. Like one thing that I would encourage you to look at is as an example is how Nifty Gateway has actually structured a lot of their sales, where you had like one unique item being either auctioned or at a high buy now price, with alongside a bit larger series, maybe like an edition of 10 that is like at a more like middle like price, and then kind of an open edition or like sort of like a low priced series that allow them to kind of reach out like volume wise more collectors. I think this is kind of where thinking about like the different price points, the number of people you want to be able to afford your art, and kind of testing and iterating on that, like I think is interesting. But Boria, tell me if you don't like. I think there is a whole class about like pricing strategy, right?
Well, sort of. In a way, we kind of have something like this, but I'm not exactly sure. Things change.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and we can talk more like about that. Like, I think this is kind of where definitely like like putting that in perspective with like your own market and like what you have done. I think it's interesting to look at artists who's actually crossed over from having it's harder, I would say, for artists who have an established market within the traditional art ecosystem. So they have like sort of a price point at which they expect their work to sell. And it's very hard for them to kind of like start at the same price level within the crypto art ecosystem, because it's mostly different collectors, like different crowd, like and different people all together. So you kind of have to start all over again, and it's a little hard when you've already spent so much time establishing yourself in another market, right? But again, prices like depend on the market, and so I would say like some things that like has worked even for more established artists is to start a little lower than like what you would expect to really build up your again like that word like community of collectors, and to not like be too hungry too fast in because you might actually miss a lot of collectors who might be interested, who might engage a lot with your work, and who don't want to who don't see the justification for like a higher price point at first. So testing that with like that strategy with different series like series sizes, platforms as well. I mean, this is like where you still see a price discrepancy between what you can expect on Tezos versus Ethereum, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is a few elements to consider.
Thank you.
All right, so a few thoughts to just wrap up. I mean, there's nothing like mind blowing, but there's a few things that like are interesting to look at, and this is kind of like the I'm sure you'll hear about a lot of this new like crypto native tools, toolkit, and mechanisms, like sales mechanisms that like actually like are, and I call them beacons of hope, because it's like, let's face it, the art market is not the most like liquid or like like well functioning market. So there are definitely like tools that like Web3 is giving artists and collectors alike, from new ways to curate exhibitions. And again, artists can curate, and I'm very I'm of the belief that like anybody can be a curator. So JPEG like allows for that. Like there's many other, of course, like different ways to decentralize governance, or like have like like all the DAOs and the artist tokens. That's like that are like ways to also build communities. And it's interesting. Artist token haven't been used recently, or like what we call social token. I mean, someone who pushed that a lot is Whale Shark, the collector, for their like kind of artist like community. Hakatao as well. Osinachi had a social token, like, but right now what you see is a bit more like artists like forming just like community of artists or like cooperatives of artists via DAOs. So nothing revolutionary, but just a new tool to make that work better. And new sale mechanisms, I mean, this is kind of where you have a lot of like things to learn from collectibles, like drops and like, you know, like even things that were not very used before in the art market, like Dutch auction or like open editions, like this type of thing is quite interesting. Dada is actually looking at like other like economic alternatives to the way artists are being paid, closer to universal base income. So there's a lot of like discussions around like what could make the market more efficient and better for like more resilient and more favorable to the creative in the long term. So like have a look at this. And then a few things like, of course, beware of, you know, scams. Like I think it's something, I mean, this is kind of more of a general language, but something that we've seen a lot and that is very sad is a lot of artists get targeted with people who want to do collaboration with them and end up being scams. And a lot of the artists I know have actually closed their DMs on Discord because it was literally 100% like scams. But yeah, like be careful out there. And then IP again, like copyright could be like an entire like discussion. They've been actually the more recent updates. Like I'll update this here about. The CC0 license, but this is something that you know, NFTs don't solve everything, and this is something that you know, nowhere in the smart contracts or even on the platforms that say that like you retain the copyright, which is like normally what is agreed upon like in the art market. So this is something that you yourself have to put in the description of the work, link to a longer text on your website if needed. I mean, this is something that you have to be very, very clear about, and whatever you decide, like, you know, like permissive or not, like license. And then really, like, you know, this is kind of the Wild West out there. So I think this is where like there's a lot of great values in Web3 that align a lot with like you know, like artists or like creative like value system, but they're also like a lot of like, you know, like scams and rug pull and like and things. So trust your guts and like and again, research like the projects, like research people who are behind it when possible. I mean, it's like we do what we can, but I think this is kind of like just being aware of this, like just, you know, this is still a space in construction, so there's a lot of things unknown, and just acknowledging it but like sticking to what you believe in will make your story more consistent and more relatable as well. Yeah, and then resources. I mean, I gave you like a lot of people to follow. We do a weekly newsletter. I mean, it's a free one. I'm not like selling anything here, but there's a lot of great like you know, things to follow to keep in the loop. It changes very fast. So this is something that like you will get a lot during that residency. But oftentimes what happens after very intense residencies like that is that like afterwards you feel a little bit like left alone, right? Like because after so many interactions for so many weeks, and then you're like, what now? I'm back in front of my computer, kind of by myself. So really take this time of the residency to build up also like kind of a network of like you know, people to follow, people to talk to, and resources to keep you informed. And it's a daily like job to keep in touch with everything that's happening. And that's me. I mean, again, email me if there's anything, or, you know, I'm on Twitter and Telegram, and would be happy to answer any other questions you may.
Any other questions, guys?
Hi there. My name is Reverse Butcher. Thank you so much for your talk today. It's been really informative. I was wondering whether you were available for any of the one-on-one mentoring sessions. Are you open, or do you have time for those if we reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I've done a few already, and but
Great.
we'll be happy to. Yeah.
So the best way is Twitter to contact you, or?
Yeah, anywhere. I mean,
Okay.
again, like you are not Discord. Like Discord, I will not see
Not
it
Discord.
probably, but anything else like. And I'll probably share the slides in the residency fourth cohort channel. Is that okay, Boya?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll do that, and then I'll follow up on the few things that I wrote down. But any other questions? Happy to do what I can to help. But you guys do all the work, so like good luck.
Thank you so much, Fanny, for your awesome the presentation. We got the question whether you will be sharing the PDF file for the presentation with us.
Yes, I'll post it as I said in the fourth cohort Discord channel.
Fabulous, fabulous. Just
And
wanted to make sure that it's answered.
absolutely, and I'll do that. I'll do that today. And
Hey, I have a question. If there is one thing that you can share with us that's that you can tell us as artists, not only crypto artists, but artists at all, what is one thing that we can make sure we do so that we can be successful and move forward with our projects?
on the like NFT or not NFT, like you are all artists, and you have like concepts or stories you want to share, and then NFTs is a little bit like, okay, well, this is part of like how I transact the work, right? Like, but it doesn't have to be like where you start, because like if you start, and this is the same thing as I say to collectors. If you start by telling collectors, if you start talking to them about NFTs by telling them about all the technical specificities, this is boring, right? Like, I mean, this is a lot to figure out. But if you start by telling them about the art, about the concepts, and then you say, well, by the way, it's available on Foundation or it's available on Tezos, they'll figure it out. So same thing is for you on the other side. Like, focus on what you have to tell, like the story we want to tell, the concepts, like just your art. And then, like, when you have that, then it will make sense where it fits. Like if it's OpenSea, if it's Zora, if it's something else, it will be much easier to do it this way, I would say.
Thank you. I completely understand, and I'm pretty sure that all the others are in line with what you're saying. So thank you so much for your presentation. It really illuminates a lot and definitely makes us feel a lot less confused about everything and a lot more excited about our art and our works. Anybody has another question? If not, then in that case, thank you, Fanny. And
No problem. I can't wait to see and discover more of your art and enjoy the residency and everything.
thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.